Bosch, Security Escort, Utilities, Backup. In the backup screen here, this is where you can create a backup of the following databases: operators, subscriber, transponders, and reports. You can check or uncheck as needed. You can save this to the master database drive or the local Escort drive. The master database drive is if this is not the master computer, or you can select the local Escort drive if this is the backup computer you're going to keep it and it's not the master computer. You select backup, and when the screen goes away, the backups are complete. For people who have larger databases, do not be alarmed if it sits there for 5 to 10 minutes on the report database. Depending on how many reports you have in that database, that could take several minutes. If you click on Utilities and Restore, the same thing applies. You select whatever database you wish to restore, and you can only restore one at a time. Select the location from where you're restoring from, and then hit Restore. It'll give you the warning that anything that has changed between the backup and today will be overwritten or lost. Hit OK or cancel, whatever is applicable for you. It'll still make a backup of the old one using the .old extension. And when the screen goes away, the restore has finished. Bosch, Security Escort, Utilities, Security Preferences. In Security Preferences, there is a lot of information. Most of this pertains to how transmitters interact with the system and how alarms are displayed to the end user and alarm levels that need to be met in order for things to happen. Alright, so the first thing we're going to look at is the turn outside sounders on, turn on alarm strobes. This has to do with a transponder system. Turn on output 1 and 2 has to do with a coordinator system. Display unauthorized alarms is displaying an alarm that is not programmed into the system, but the transmitter went into an alarm. So when you do that, and I'm just going to go ahead and show you this real quick. We hit save. It'll show up as an unauthorized alarm. It'll tell you where this alarm is. It'll tell you the transmitter ID of the alarm. At which point you can go find the person that's in an alarm. You can write down their transmitter ID so that you can enroll it into the system and then go ahead and clear the alarm. Back into Utilities and System Preferences. Filter virtual fence. A virtual fence is where you want to keep transmitters into an area or keep transmitters out of an area. If you have the checkbox Filter Virtual Fence, that allows one whole check-in to be missed outside of the assigned area before a wandering alarm occurs. No point text if area text. This one I suggest you always keep checked. The reason for this is point text is receiver text, and I always describe receiver text as the physical installed location, not something that you want to display to the end user. So, keeping that in line, you always keep this checked so that it's not giving you any point text or receiver text and only showing you area text. Output includes subscriber ID. Output includes transmitter ID. The subscriber ID is the unique identifier. It doesn't need to be checked unless there's a reason that you need to have it checked, but the output includes transmitter ID is kind of useful when looking at history. Limit alarms to one transponder has to do with a complex where you have multiple buildings, but they're far enough apart that you're not tracking between the buildings, and you want to make sure that this building stays isolated to itself. That's about the only place that would really work the best. Limit alarms to one area. I always suggest to be checked so you don't have more than one area being displayed in the alarm window. Man down alarm on auto track. That means that you track in a man down alarm. Require alarm report. That mandates when clearing the alarm that you fill out an alarm report. This is optional. Security alarms are silent. Installer alarms are silent is exactly what that says. If those are checked, those classification of alarms will be silent and will not sound off horns and strobes. No receiver icons. It's a negative statement, so if this is checked, you do not see the receiver icons in the alarm screen. I don't have any reason to suggest that you uncheck this. It just adds more artifacts to the screen and possibly could confuse somebody when dispatching. Show tests on map. That is what I showed you in a previous video. And that is where you did a test and it came up with okays or it came up with fails. All pager confirmed not required. This is dependent on what pager system you are using, if it gives a confirmation that a page was sent successfully. Suppress lanyard alarm and suppress man down alarm have to do with the man down transmitter. If that is checked, it'll not allow those to go into alarm in the system via the software, even if it's enabled in the transmitter. Alarm auto silence. This is how many seconds the alarm will go off before it turns the noise off by itself. This is adjustable. Recall operators. How many seconds do you go before you require somebody to log back in again? If they automatically get logged out, that does not prevent the alarm from displaying on the screen. So in an instance where you don't want to have a logged in user stay logged in because you don't want the history tied to that user, it is a good idea to enforce recall, because every time you do something that makes them put their passcode in for the operator using the software so that you can identify who did what in the system. And then everything else in here also shows up in the reference manual, but to cover it quickly, on an outside test, flash horns and strobes for 5 seconds is pretty self-explanatory. Man down delay timer and man down jitter timer are delays that you can add into the system. So if a man down alarm for some reason gets falsely activated, they can address the issue with the transmitter before it goes into alarm in the system. Auto reset COM ports was originally here in support of the USB to COM bus adapters. As we don't like to actively support USB to serial bus adapters with communications to transponders in a production system, I don't think that this needs to be checked. Trigger all outputs on alarm. That's simply what it means, is trigger all the outputs when you get an alarm and for how many seconds. The end of shift reminder, if enabled, lets you know when your shifts are ending, and this has to do with guard tour. In the bottom right hand corner, database find, locate test level, guard tour in minutes, and watchdog in minutes all have to do with received signal strength to the receiver to perform those functions, or minutes on how long that you're supposed to be doing something. Alright, the guard tour in minutes is how many minutes go by before all guard tour transmitters get pulled for their current location. And Watchdog is a diagnostics tool. Adjust these settings as appropriately and then hit save. Bosch, Security Escort, Utilities, System Defaults. Under System Defaults allows you to change default descriptions for things. Under the subscribers, these are subscriber labels that you can customize. Under personal titles, you can go ahead and add in personal titles if needed. Information label 1 through 4 have to do with the subscriber advanced information or additional information. Alright, so under field 1, if this was, medical info, you go ahead and hit save. And then under the subscriber database, under the edit data, and under information, you'll see how medical info shows up here. And any medical information or any additional information you need can be typed in here. Back under Utilities and System Default, those are all the values that can be changed. Under Utilities and System Labels, this has to do with the report option. These are the report subjects. So, let me just go ahead and cancel out of here for just one moment and go over to the reports database. These report issues, which is a drop-down box when you fill out a report, are options that you can select. Is the person threatened? Was it an accident? Accident auto, medical problem, false alarm, alarm demonstration, etc. You can change those values here to whatever you want. After you change the values to whatever you feel is appropriate, go ahead and hit save. Bosch, Security Escort, Utilities, Print, Export, System Reports. Alright, so when it comes to reports, just as a reminder, this has to do with the report printer. In this case, I do not have a printer. I'm going to print a file. Under Utilities, Print, Export, System Reports. Under this section, you can set up to a Print Now report, which is the left-hand column, or you can do a daily report or a weekly report. Now, the daily reports are at midnight, and the weekly reports are on Sunday only. All of these reports are defined in the reference manual. But let's just go ahead and run a couple of these and take a look at them. So we're going to go ahead and do a low battery report. So in order to do that, we check the box, we hit save. We go back into the report, you'll see that the box is checked there, and you hit print. If the box goes away, the file was printed correctly. The default location for this is the Security Escort folder, which is the C drive, Security Escort. If you do date modified, you'll see that it was the one recently added under the low battery report. This is an example of the low battery report. As you can see, I don't have any. Bosch, Security Escort, Utilities, Export Alarm Report. This is a pretty general reporting tool. You have a start date, an end date, a start time, and an end time, and you can either pick by a specific subscriber. So these are the 2 subscriber IDs I have in there, or you can pick by subscriber name. And you can make a list of specific subscribers, but this is to specifically select subscribers. Or you can run a report based on subscriber type. You can sort it by alarm time, by transmitter ID, subscriber name, or problem type. Go ahead and hit export. This will save it as a CSV in this folder. After you're done, go ahead and hit cancel. Bosch Security Escort, Utilities, Alarm Flash Report. Now, an alarm flash report, you can select the hours from now. So the last 4 hours, the last 8 hours, the last 12 hours, or the last 24 hours. And that will show you all of the alarms that happened inside that time bracket. It'll give you the time the alarm came in, the subscriber name, transmitter ID, location, problem description, responding officer, action taken, and the time it was acknowledged. You can go ahead and send this as an email or save the report. Bosch Security Escort, Utilities, Muster Report. So muster report is an alarm scenario where you have a complex of buildings or a very large facility where in case of an emergency you need to evacuate the complex or building and you need everybody to report to a station to get checked in to make sure that there is nobody stuck inside. What a muster report does is it identifies where this person is so that you can either go get them and rescue them or that they're safe and inside the correct area. If you run this Security Escort program on a Microsoft Surface Pro, making this a mobile tablet-like program, you can utilize this over Wi-Fi to view the muster report actively. And as people show up to the correct stations and check in, resetting their transmitters, this list would populate with the supervision time, the subscriber name, the transmitter ID, where they are, and what receivers they're near. You can save or send this report as email. Bosch Security Escort, Utilities. What we're going to talk about here is the relationship between schedules and alarm groups. And alarm group state. First, we're going to start with alarm groups. In alarm groups, you can create an alarm group. Let's say we have a group called security doors. You can either arm or disarm that alarm group and then just hit save, and that's the current state of that alarm group. Alternately, you can arm and disarm this by schedule. So let's go ahead and hit save and take a look at schedules. Under schedule, you have schedule 1, which is what we currently are assigned. And then you can set the arming and disarming time for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You can also add and remove holiday dates. After you're done setting your arm and disarm schedule, you can go ahead and hit save. After your schedules are set up, you can then view faulted points during an armed period under alarm group state. So points that are currently faulted for these alarm groups that are armed. Currently I'm not armed and currently I don't have any faulted points, but if there were faulted points during an armed state, they would show up here. If they actively become faulted while in an armed state, they show up as an alarm and then will show up here.